Hey, welcome back, American Government class. It is Thursday, October 29th, 2020. Hope you are having a wonderful week so far. Today in government, let's take a look at our agenda. We're going to hit you with a 5-minute review, as always, to start the class. Today I'm thinking maybe we switch it up a little bit. I'll throw some names out there. When I call your name, see if you can answer the question correctly. After that, we're going to talk about something called the Great Debate. Now, if you have my global class, we watched a movie called The Great Debaters. This is not anything to do with that. It has nothing to do with that movie at all. We're talking about a debate a long time ago that all revolves around the Constitution. Then we'll hit you with a weekly review quiz. What? Why? Because it's the last class of this week. We don't have another class this week, so we got to hit you up with a weekly review quiz. Don't worry, we'll go over it in the 5-minute review. There will be some things on it, maybe from our great debate talk today. I don't know. Who knows? I guess I do. And I'm telling you, maybe pay attention, huh? After we do our weekly review quiz, I'll hit you with your assignment and your attendance question. We'll get you on to your next classes and into Friday so that we can enjoy the weekend. So, without further ado, let's hit up that 5-minute review right now. All right, guys, got you down here on the desk, zoomed in for our 5-minute review on our Constitution unit. Take a look at that Constitution over my shoulder right there. That's a good-looking Constitution, man. I am really good at drawing. I'm not really good. That doesn't look anything like the actual Constitution. But it is my replica, if you will. We will take a look at the Constitution, see what it actually looks like later on in this unit. But for now, 5-minute review, and I'm calling you by name here, all right? Let's see when I call your name if you can answer this question. Only you will know. Hopefully, you get it right when it is your turn. Let's start off with Marilyn. Hey, Marilyn, what was the United States' first Constitution called? I hope you said the Articles of Confederation. Why didn't the Articles of Confederation work, Anna Yenzi? What's that? Did you say they were weak, like Mr. Finn? Yeah, that's right. They were weak. Give me 5 weaknesses. Angel. Yeah, Angel. 5, bro. Give me all 5. Can you do it? Well done, well done. For those of you that couldn't hear, Angel said that you couldn't tax. They couldn't enforce the law. You needed 9 of the 13 states to be there to pass a law. Congress couldn't regulate trade, and to change or amend the articles, you would require all 13 colonies or states at this time to agree. Great job, Angel. All right, let's go on to Jackie H. Why was the requirement of 9 out of the 13 states being present to pass a law a problem, Jackie? Ooh, yeah, you got to think about it. Take your time. Take your... That's correct. Sometimes 9 states wouldn't even send representatives. 9 states total wouldn't have shown up. There'd only be 7 or 8 states at this meeting, so they couldn't pass a law. Good job, Jackie. Hey, what does the word amend mean, Bobby? Bobby, what's the word amend mean? Yes, change. Change, or in addition, if you will. Absolutely, that's what an amendment is. We will talk about amendments quite a bit in this unit. Now, what was the flashpoint or the event that led to Alexander Hamilton calling for another convention? Jackie S. Jackie S. What was that event? What was it? Shays' Rebellion. Yes, Shays' Rebellion was the event where all those dudes teamed up with Daniel Shays, and they were farmers, they were former Revolutionary War heroes, and they were losing their plants, losing their farms, their crops, didn't have a lot of money, and they said enough is enough. And that's when Alexander Hamilton said, yo, we need a new convention because we gotta fix the Articles of Confederation. And that was the only purpose of the Philadelphia Convention, which was going to be the next question. They wanted to revise the Articles. But Jennifer, what did they do instead? Jennifer S., what did they do instead of revising the Articles? They created a new Constitution. That's right. Excellent job. Now, who is considered to be the father of the Constitution? Alicia. Alicia, let's throw you into the fire here. Were you paying attention to our notes? Good job. Good job. James Madison is the father of the Constitution. Now that is different than the father of the country. George Washington is the father of the country. He was our first president. He led the Continental Army to defeat the British so that we could be free. He was one of the founding fathers. He was our first, he's considered the father of the country, father of the nation. But James Madison is the father of the Constitution because he helped birth it. He helped bring the two sides together, took a lot of notes, and made sure everybody's voice was heard. Next is, what were 3 characteristics of delegates at the Constitutional Convention? Anayenzi. What did they all have in common? Give me 3 things all the delegates had in common. Yes, old, white, and men. Good job. Now, which plan that they discussed at the Constitutional Convention was for the large states, Angel? That was the plan that would be for the states that had a lot of people, high population. Virginia plan, correct. What was the plan for the small states, Maryland? What did we call that plan for the small states with not a lot of people? The New Jersey plan, well done. Now, what was the name of the compromise that took some of the Virginia plan and some of the New Jersey plan and put them right together? Bobby, what was the name of that compromise? Yes, it was called the Great Compromise, but you could also call it the Connecticut Compromise. The Connecticut Compromise or the Great Compromise, it's the same thing. Good. Speaking of compromises, Jackie S., what was the name of the compromise that said that the southern states would be allowed to count slaves towards their population so that they could get more votes, but they also had to count them towards taxes that they paid. So they had to pay money, but they couldn't count them as a full person. They counted them as 3/5 of a person. What was the name of that compromise? The 3/5 compromise. That was a tough one, Jackie. I know. Well done. Real quick, pause right there because I want to talk about that. That's a compromise where two sides want different things and they meet in the middle. Remember, we talked about this. The northern states didn't want the slaves to count for population. They said, no, then you'll have more votes in Congress. The southern states, they wanted them to count because they'd get more votes. So the North and the South agreed to meet in the middle, and the North said, we'll let you count them towards your population, but only as 3/5 of an actual person. So for every 5 slaves, it'll count as 3 people towards your population, but you also have to pay taxes on them. Southern states said, okay, we can do that. And that was the 3/5 compromise. Now, when was the Constitution signed? Let's go back to Alicia. Alicia, when was the Constitution signed? Signed? Yes, it was signed on September 17th, 1787. That might be on your quiz today, who knows? And that's it right now for your 5-minute review. Great job. Let's move on in to the great debate. Yes. The great debate. But what was the great debate? I'm glad you asked. First, before we get into that, you may need to pause your video. What I want you to do is I want you to check your email for this graphic organizer that I sent to you today. Go ahead, we'll zoom on in here. But it says the great debate, and it has a picture of Thomas Jefferson, this guy right there, James Madison, the Federalist Papers, ratification, and Bill of Rights. Go ahead, check your email for that right now. You're going to need that graphic organizer for today. All right. Now, you don't need to write this down on that graphic organizer yet, but the great debate was a debate that took place a long time ago. Just like everything we've been talking about, this was around the time of 1787. Obviously, 1787 when the Constitution was signed, to about 1788. And when we say debate, what I'm talking about is not a debate like you probably are thinking, between two people behind podiums arguing back and forth with one another. This was more of a debate amongst the people of the country of the United States. And there were two kind of trains of thought. And we're going to get into that, but I want you to kind of relate it to today, in your life today. Right now, specifically this year, specifically this time period, what is a large debate amongst people between our country? What are people all around our country going back and forth on right now? What are they arguing about and debating? Maybe something that's coming up next week on Tuesday? That's right, the election for our president. We got half the country over here that says, yo, we love the president. Half the country over here that says, oh my gosh, he's crazy. Let's get rid of this president and get a new president. That's the great debate of our day right now. What we're going to be talking about is the great debate of these guys' day, the Founding Fathers' day, their great debate. And just like everything we've been discussing this unit, it all revolves around, of course, the Constitution. And what you need to know going into this is that there were two sides, just like there are two sides today. And those two sides are the top two pieces on your Cornell note graphic organizer, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. And that's where we will pick this up, talking about our anti-feds and our feds in our Cornell notes right now.
All right, so let's start with the first group of people on one of the sides of this debate, the Anti-Federalists. And the Anti-Federalists were a group of people that opposed ratification of the Constitution, the one that was just created. Now, what does ratification mean? Well, we should know from our vocab, but if we don't, we can just scroll right down here. Ratification means approval. So after all this hard work in Philadelphia, these Anti-Federalists did not want to approve the Constitution. They were not having it. And for one primary reason. I'm going to put 2 stars here so you know that this is very important. The primary reason was that there was no Bill of Rights. And what is a Bill of Rights? Well, a Bill of Rights is basically rights for the people. Not just, the rights of the rich folk or the government or how the government should work. The Anti-Federalists wanted rights for the people specifically. They feared that government might have too much control, so they wanted the people to have rights. And that's what a Bill of Rights is. When you think of some of the freedoms that you have in this country, if I said, what's a freedom you have in America? Some of you might say, I have freedom of speech. Or you might say, I have freedom of religion. These are all freedoms that are found in a Bill of Rights. At the time, there was no Bill of Rights. This whole Constitutional Convention happened. They created many compromises. They come out with the Constitution, and the Constitution had no Bill of Rights. So the Anti-Federalists opposed ratifying it. They also objected to a strong national government. This is what they just came from in England. The king was the leader of the entire nation and had way too much power. The Anti-Federalists felt that the Constitution was very similar and it gave the national government more power than it needed and not enough power to the 13 state governments. So we can say objected to, but also the key here is they feared a strong national government. One of the things that Congress could do that they feared was Congress could establish a standing army. And that basically just means an army ready to go at a moment's notice. They would build them up, they could draft them, and get them to fight whenever they needed. Anti-Federalists did not like that. One other thing that the Anti-Federalists did not like was that the convention, the miracle in Philadelphia, the entire Philadelphia Convention was held in secret. They were not a fan that the people and the public did not know what was going on. They didn't have a say in the debates. They did not get to vote for plans or compromises. This was all held in secret. And the Anti-Federalists thought that this was a little suspicious. Why weren't they allowing the people to have a say? Now, who were the Anti-Federalists? Well, many anti-feds, and you'll see me call them that throughout this unit as an abbreviation. Many anti-feds were active in the Revolutionary era. So when we were fighting England for our freedom, there we go, many of the Anti-Federalists were around during that time and fought for our freedom, declared independence against England and the king. So these were people who wanted to have those individual rights, wanted to have those individual freedoms. Who were some of them? Well, we know Jefferson was one, because his name is right over here underneath the Anti-Federalists, but also Sam Adams, who is related to John Adams, one of our presidents of the United States. Sam Adams was also a leader of a gang back in the day called the Sons of Liberty. Not a gang like you think. It wasn't a Blood or a Crip, but Sam Adams was in charge of these guys that would cause a lot of trouble and fight back for freedom against the British government. And also another famous one is Patrick Henry. If you recall from American Government class, one of his claims to fame was, he said, "Give me liberty or give me death." He would rather be dead than live in a country where he didn't have any freedoms. Now, these were not the only Anti-Federalists. There were plenty more. And for the most part, the Anti-Federalists were farmers and rural people. And by that I mean, you know, the laborers or the working men. We weren't talking about the businessmen here or the merchants or the city folk. These were the people who lived out in the rural areas on farms, worked on farms, and put in a hard day's work. Today, we would call them blue-collar workers. Now, as far as the Federalists go, they were the complete opposite. They obviously favored ratification of the new Constitution. Why would they favor ratification? Well, because many of them had created it, all right? Many were men who attended the Constitutional Convention. And these are the type of people who supported a strong national government. They thought, hey, the national government is the most important. When we fight other countries, it's not states that are fighting other countries, it's our entire country. So a national government is very important. Who were some of these people? Well, right over here, we see our boy, the father of the Constitution, James Madison. That would make sense that he supported the Constitution. He was the father of the Constitution. The guy that we've talked about a little bit, named Alexander Hamilton, who I can't wait for one of our next classes. You guys are going to get to know him a little bit better. George Washington was also a Federalist, and, of course, Benjamin Franklin. So these were guys that, you know, we know a few of them were all at the Constitutional Convention. In fact, I believe all four of these men were at the Constitutional Convention. They, of course, are going to support ratifying and approving the convention. Now, Madison, Hamilton, Washington, Franklin, besides being, you know, founding fathers, they were also merchants, businessmen, and city people, the exact opposite of the Anti-Federalists. So you would consider these guys today more of the white-collar type of individuals. That's what we would call them today, white-collar. Now, what happens next? We have these two people, these two groups, the Anti-Federalists and the Federalists, and they completely disagree. So, if we go right here, the Federalists realize that they have to convince the people to approve this new constitution. They realize that they are fighting an uphill battle and we need to do something to get people on our side. So what they do is they create something called the Federalist Papers. The Federalist Papers talked about and really asked one single question, and that was whether or not to ratify. This was the big topic of discussion in newspapers, in taverns, when people were going to get drinks with each other, whether it was beer or tea or food. People would talk about, should we ratify this Constitution? And of course, on the streets, the public would go back and forth. Should we ratify this Constitution? Was it good? Was it bad? They held it in secret. It gives us some rules for our country. It's going to be better than the Articles. What should we do? This was the big topic of discussion. So, as I said, a series of papers were released to the public. And in fact, it was a series of 85 essays. 85 essays. That's a lot of essays. You guys write one in English class over a few days and you get tired. These guys wrote 85 essays and published them in the newspapers. They were, of course, written by the Federalists. All of the Federalists, ignore that. All of the Federalists got together and wrote these essays. Mainly there were only a few authors, but these were all of the ideas from the Federalists. And it started off in New York first. Then the essays went into other states as it grew and grew and grew. We said obviously these papers supported ratification. They supported approval, and they tried to educate the public on the new Constitution. They wanted to basically explain the new Constitution to the people because they knew it was hard. There was a lot of effort that went into it, a lot of compromises. They had a lot more information than the people did, so they wanted to explain it to the people, and they did so by writing these essays. Now, the main writers of the Federalist Papers, three people whose names we've seen. James Madison was one. Alexander Hamilton was another. And a third, John Jay, who we discussed a little bit in one class. These were the three authors of the Federalist Papers. All of the Federalists agreed, but these were the main three men who wrote the Federalist Papers trying to educate the public. And they were very, very, very smart men. Now, ratification. After the public kind of gets to reading these Federalist Papers, they still kind of agree, hey, we need a Bill of Rights. The Anti-Federalists aren't budging. They say we need a Bill of Rights. We can't approve this Constitution with a Bill of Rights. So, in 1788, after promises were made to add a Bill of Rights, the Constitution is ratified. It is approved. Now, the person who made the promise was Madison. After all, he is the father of the Constitution. He tells the Anti-Federalists, listen, we will add a Bill of Rights to this Constitution as long as you approve it. I promise we will. I guarantee you. The Anti-Federalists, Jefferson, Sam Adams, Patrick Henry, they take his word. They say this is a man of honor, a man of integrity. We can trust that if we ratify the Constitution, he will fulfill his end and he will add a Bill of Rights. And do you think he did? If you said yes, you are correct. Because a Bill of Rights, which we know, I told you, is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And this is where that vocabulary comes into play. What's an amendment? It's a change or an addition. So they added 10 things to the Constitution. And again, as we said, what is a Bill of Rights? A Bill of Rights was a protections for individual rights of citizens. We consider them freedoms. And these Bill of Rights also had to be approved. It didn't happen right away. There were a lot of things going on. It took 3 years. And the Bill of Rights were ratified in 1791. This was the debate. This was how it was settled. Again, they compromise. They say, hey, we will add a Bill of Rights to the Constitution so that we can have a complete Constitution and a new form of government in the United States. Here's what your notes should look like, and that is all we have.
All right, 5-minute review time. Got my Constitution cleared off so you guys couldn't get any extra help or tips. Not that that would have helped you at all. Go ahead, get a piece of paper and a pencil ready, or if you're doing it on a computer, feel free to just, type it up. Number your paper from 1 to 10, and as always, 3 bonus questions. Remember that if at any time you need to pause this so that you can, not get behind and hear the questions, you may absolutely do so. All right. Question number 1. Very simple question. Speaking of plans at the convention, what was the name of the plan at the Constitutional Convention that wanted votes in Congress to be based off a state's population? Meaning that the more people you have in your state, the more votes you would get in Congress. You might call it a plan for the large states or the largely populated states. Number 2, what was the name of the other plan that said all votes should be equal in Congress for every state, no matter how many people you have? You might call this the plan for the small states or the low populated states. Number 3 is, what was the compromise? What was the name of the compromise that took some of both of those plans and smushed them on together, took a little bit from each and spit out a compromise? What was the name of that compromise? You can give me one of 2 possible options. Number 4, speaking of that compromise, what type of Congress did that compromise create? Looking for a specific word here. What type of compromise, what type of Congress did that compromise create? That is number 4. Number 5, how much of a person does the Constitution say that a slave counts as? Number 6, on what month, what day, and what year was the Constitution signed? Excuse me. Number 7, what does the word ratify mean? What does the word ratify mean? And number 8, what was the name of the group of people who opposed ratification of the Constitution? They were against it. They did not want to see the Constitution ratified. Number 9, let's keep it on that same track. What was the name of the group of people that wanted to ratify the Constitution? That said, yeah, this Constitution's money, A-OK. Let's ratify this puppy. What was their name? Not specific names. What was the name of that group of people? Now, number 10, we're talking about one of those 2 groups. What was the main reason that the people who opposed ratification, people like Jefferson and Sam Adams,
What was the main reason that they opposed ratification? What was the Constitution missing or lacking? All right, 3 bonus questions. Bonus question number 1. How many states had to agree to ratify the Constitution for it to become our new Constitution? Excuse me, and our current set of laws? When would it take effect? After how many states ratified it? Bonus question number 2 is, what city was the Constitutional Convention held in? Ooh, tricky one. Haven't heard that one yet. Should be pretty easy, though. And number 13, bonus question 3. Question number 13 total. In the Slave Trade Compromise, what year could slave trade not be banned until? The southern states wanted to make sure that they wouldn't get outvoted and that slave trade would be banned. So they put in a compromise saying, hey, you can't ban slave trade until this year. What year was that? That, my friends, is your weekly review quiz for this Thursday. Let's go ahead, see what your assignment and your attendance questions are.
Today's assignment and attendance question are actually very easy. For your assignment, you are simply going to send me a picture of the notes we took today, guys. Send me a pic of the great debate notes. And following up that assignment, your attendance question will simply be to email me a picture of your weekly review quiz, or email me just the answers to your weekly review quiz. Those are the 2 things. 2, not 4, 2. 2 things that you need to do. Email me a picture of the notes we took today and send me your answers for the weekly review quiz. That knocks out both the attendance and the assignment. And we are done for this week. We will pick it back up in government next week, guys. Hope you have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. We will see you next week for a special election day coverage of government class. Take care.